Mit jelent 2020-ban a hazafiasság? Kit nevezünk ma a hazafinak?
God, who is the ultimate source of law, the love of country, patriotism, and freedom belong together.
So it's obvious that although love of country can be distorted, love mixed with jealousy or resentment, so to speak, it can also be elevated by generosity. Unspoiled, it can inspire great achievements and great sacrifices. And it provides society with the glue of idealistic fellowship that helps us all get through the hard times.
There is a very big loss in people when they do not feel a special connection to their country.
In my view, patriotism is a virtue. I would use the word virtue. It's a habit. It's a settled disposition.
The bigger issue is that for the last several decades, the best way to make money was to outsource all production, et cetera, to China, offshore as much as possible, and really avoid any obligations of citizenship, whether that be very concrete things like taxes or broader issues around community support and participation.
And I think patriotism is an inclusive concept. So it is not against anybody, but it stabilizes the national identity, and by this it stabilizes also the sovereignty.
We will have to admit that there has been a disruption caused by the rapidity and the scale of globalization, and of course, most recently, the hyper-globalization unleashed through technology.
Because what produces wealth is what Simon used to call the ultimate resource, which is man and his knowledge, human beings and their knowledge.
A country without a self-esteem or a continent without a self-esteem cannot go very far neither. And I think for Europe it applies both for countries and for the continent itself.
That the nation state is roaring back into fashion. If there's hundreds of armed men that are ransacking your neighborhood or your house, you're not going to call Google. And if somebody's crossing your border, you're not going to go on Twitter and complain about it. You will call the state at that point.
When I speak about European patriotism and the nation state, I mean the love for those things that unite us Europeans and make us different from the rest of the world. Our Greco-Roman roots, our Christian spirituality, our wonderful art history, our regional traditions, our national diversity, our technological and scientific achievements, our specific view on how men should always try to excel, and so forth.
What we need in this turbulence is a state that is firmly anchored by a nation of citizens who share the same sentiment, patriotism.
So it's important to have a digital sovereignty for, on one reason, the concept of the free speech, and in the second point for a concept of the security of the national state and the security of the single citizens.
Or let us look at this year, 2020, and the pandemics, coronavirus pandemics. Which forms of cooperation were the most efficient to respond, and which responded in the quickest way? Well, once again, nation states.
I think there's a renaissance of the nation state, of the Westphalian system in the 21st century. The nation state never really went away.
At the end of the day, what holds the state together is a shared culture.
Azért úgy gondolom, hogy nem teljesen mindegy, hogy egy ilyen fontos kérdés, ami tényleg mindenkinek az életét befolyásolja, azt hol döntenek el. Itt Magyarországon, Budapesten, a budapesti parlamentben, ahol ugye az emberek szavaznak, ismerik a képviselőiket, adott esetben be tudnak menni a képviselőhöz, vannak fogadási órák, vagy Brüsszelbe az Európai Parlament, illetve a különböző brüsszeli szervek.
But more speech substantiated by facts, backed up by history, by data, those are the things that will help counter political correctness.
But these young people want to fight something. They're idealistic. They're filled with political energies, and if those political energies can't be directed at a real problem or enemy, then they'll turn them inwards and attack the very institutions and ideals that defend us and have enabled us to prosper.
But who has the authority to define what is or is not politically correct? The answer is quite simple. He who wields power.
I think now in the public debate, both sides are using too much strong arguments, and each side is blaming the other side. We have to, I think, make a step back and listen more to each other.
We are sliding towards tolerated violence against anyone who believes or celebrates God.
Nem lehet reflektálni a dolgokra. Olvassunk, művelődjünk, és dolgozunk azon, hogy próbáljunk érteni a világot. Legyen egy szépen strukturált vélemények, amit tudunk védeni másokkal szemben.
You can have multinational organizations that do not have to be globalist in their remit. You can have multinational entities and agreements and treaties and much more that do not have to go down a globalization route.
How can globalization, mondialization, be, in some extent, realized without destroying the primary political and social reality that is the homeland?
A person cannot be at home everywhere or anywhere in the world. Nobody can be torn out of time and space. We all need a place to call home.
To take away people's religion, tell them that's bad, take away people's love for and trust in their family and friends, and then you replace it with what? With this globalist ideology, which really is just consumerism. It's materialism, it's unfulfilling, and what's happened is that it's a very unnatural way for people to live, and they're starting to push back on it.
It is, of course, possible to be a patriot and a globalist at the same time, but only if both terms are lived positively. Your country always comes first. That's the bloody duty of any government.
Én azt gondolom, hogy lehet valaki úgy világpolgár, tarthatja úgy fontosnak a közös kérdéseket, a közös mindannyiunkat érintő kérdéseket, hogy közben a saját hazáját egy picit fontosabbnak tartja.
The root of this shared European heritage, these shared European ways of thinking or categories of thought, starts in faith. Faith is a commitment. Faith in God is a commitment. It is a basis for self-respect and respect for others.
Faith, religion, and intellectual scientific approach are two ways to approach the same reality. Science tries to understand and describes reality, and faith and religion tries to find the meaning in reality, and they are very complementary to each other.
I think all religions, if respectful to others and not dangerous to anyone, could lead to God.
Here in Western Europe, Eastern Europe cannot have the mention of God when all Islamic countries have the mention of God in their constitutions.
That is why we are experiencing permanent decadence. It is the end of a stage, because in too many places of Western societies, we have become bored with ourselves.
Came to speak about Judeo-Christian heritage because we had the feeling that our European culture was going far from this Judeo-Christian heritage, and that's why we use this word, just a sign of something disappearing in a way.
A kereszténység számomra az, hogy én emberként nem játszom Istent.
Szeretném megköszönni a Matthias Corvinus Kollégium és a Danube Institute nevében, hogy az elmúlt hetek során figyelemmel követték a Patriotic Talks eseménysorozatunkat.